Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about some of the events that took place in 2020. Wish me luck. Um, and particularly, I want to focus on the series of high-ranking people in the political scene that broke the rules of lockdown. And up until this point, until very recently, I thought these people were just idiots and that they didn't follow the rules because they knew it was bollocks. But I'm now wondering whether it was deliberate and that there were some people who were almost double agents and were working to counteract the plans of the baddies. As you know, I've said on this channel that I think now there is an active psyop to wake people up and that the baddies' plans have been thwarted, basically. And whilst looking back at the events of the last few years, I'm now starting to see evidence that maybe there was a psyop in place to counteract the baddies' psyop from the beginning. And so let's look at these series of people, politicians and political people who were found to have broken the rules. Okay, and I think this has happened in other countries as well, which makes me think there is more to it. But there was this one example in the UK. It was the chief advisor to Boris Johnson, the PM at the time, and he was found red-handed breaking the rules a couple of times. He took a couple of trips in his car, and there was this horrendous press conference in which they got him out and was questioned by the media, and he told the most ludicrous story I've ever seen. And it was, when I talked about a pantomime, this is what I'm talking about. And he made up this story that he and his wife drove to this castle to test his eyesight. Okay, so he was driving to a castle to test his eyesight. And it's just absolute comedy genius. And the reason that I've changed my stance on why this took place is look at the reaction of the public. Because up until that point in the UK, everyone was extremely compliant. There was a very, very high level of compliance. And I remember distinctly, and I felt it myself, that when this came out about the chief advisor breaking the rules, people were furious, and they were all saying, well, it's one rule for them and one rule for everyone else. If they're not gonna follow it, I'm not. And the compliance went straight out of the window. And within a few weeks after that, they started lifting restrictions because it wouldn't wash anymore. People were done. They were furious. Now, if this had been a mistake, okay, and this guy was in on it, and he was one of the baddies, wouldn't they have tried to cover it up? Why would they publish it in the media? Because the immediate impact is obvious, which is what happened, that the public were furious and they wouldn't want to comply anymore, which is exactly what the baddies didn't want, and it ruined their lockdown. So this is what makes me think that perhaps there have been people in high-ranking positions who have been actively trying to counteract the plans of the baddies for quite some time. So from an observer's perspective, that's what I see now, because I see no reason why they would have made such a meal out of it. They would want to completely cover it up and pretend it didn't happen because they want to think everyone was complying. And then all of the stuff came out about Boris Johnson and his cabinet having barbecues during lockdown and all of this, and they made such a meal out of it. And I thought it was to rub it in people's faces, but now I'm not so sure, because actually it just makes people go, what was the point? What's the point of following these rules? So there you go. I think there was an active psyop to counteract the Baddies psyop from the beginning.